Tonight, we focus on food security. With the onset of the long rain season in some regions, what are the interventions the government has made to caution farmers and livestock keepers? And does the government need to change its strategy? Let's take a look at the highlights.
Tomorrow, we will be announcing new measures in the affected areas. Which new measures will entail phase 2 of this operation?
Not done with you yet. Government announces phase 2 of security operations in the North Rift region. Back to the streets, but in peace. Azimio leader Raila Odinga formally announced the beginning of mass action over the high cost of living and electoral reforms. And relying on rain-fed agriculture, why the country needs to change its strategy. Thank you for joining us on tonight's Prime Edition. My name is Njenga, and our sign language interpreter for tonight is Byron Abuli. Now let's take it away. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki says the government will on Friday launch the second phase of security operations to flush out bandits in 6 counties of the North Rift region. Kindiki said security agencies on the ground have crucial leads on intelligence that will help deal with the bandits conclusively.
Following the lapse of 20 days of the first phase in the operation to flush out bandits in the North Rift, the government says there is a need to launch the second phase to counter the menace.
We have witnessed continued theatrics, antics, and maneuvers by criminals who continue to exhibit high levels of impunity. And therefore, tomorrow, we will be announcing new measures in the affected areas. Which new measures will entail phase 2 of this operation?
Kindiki noted that the joint operation has made progress and has so far recovered over 140 illegal firearms from the locals.
I can confirm that we have made the deployment. We have assessed the nature of the security threats. We have made some progress with regard to some of the measures that had already been pronounced. Up to now, we have received about 140 plus weapons of various types.
The CS affirmed that all illegal firearms and ammunition will be recovered to guarantee normalcy in the banditry-prone areas.
These are our people. We have already spoken to him.
Kindiki has, however, condemned the recent attempts by individuals to forcefully access the Directorate of Criminal Investigation headquarters after the former Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, was summoned.
Going forward, any person, regardless of their rank in society, who even attempts to threaten to forcibly access security facilities or intimidate officers on duty will be dealt with firmly, ruthlessly, and decisively in accordance with the law.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga has formally announced the beginning of mass action to compel the government to reduce the cost of living and instigate electoral reforms. The coalition says they will be holding peaceful rallies beginning tomorrow in Migori and throughout the weekend that will culminate in a rally in Nairobi on 20th March. Now, however, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has cautioned against the demonstrations, saying they are meaningless and would only hurt the economy.
After the expiry of the 14 days ultimatum issued in February by the Azimio coalition, its leader Raila Odinga gathered his troops to rally them towards the next course of action.
We launched a campaign of defiance of peaceful picketing, peaceful protests, boycotts, strikes, disobedience, peaceful petitions, peaceful sit-ins, and peaceful demonstrations, and it begins today and now.
Raila warned that the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, a process kick-started by the gazettement of a selection panel, would claw back on gains made in making the commission independent.
We begin telling Ruto and Gachagua that we can't keep living on false promises.
We said the process of disbanding and remaking the IBC must stop completely because it was an exercise in futility, which is null and void.
The coalition will head to Migori Friday, Narok on Saturday, then head to the coastal towns of Mombasa and Kilifi before the final protest on 20th of March in Nairobi. This even as Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi warned against the demonstrations by the opposition.
We must figure out the resources, the meager resources that we have. Where are we directing them? We then equally must figure out what are the new areas that we can bring on the table that can help spur the economy.
Earlier at the forum, there was skirmishes as rival groups of a Jubilee party affiliated to Jeremiah Kioni and Kanini Kega, who both claimed to be the party's Secretary General, clashed. Kega, while addressing a press conference later, accused Kioni of running a lone man show in the Dove party and distanced the outfit from the calls for mass action by Azimio.
The behavior that you have seen today of the former Secretary General to bring along goons to come and disrupt an internationally covered function whereby we had dignitaries from all over the world is demeaning to our party. It is something that is totally unacceptable.
John Jacob Curia, Prime Edition.
Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu now says the government has put its measures to counter infiltration of the LGBTQ agenda in schools. Machogu, who appeared before the Senate Committee on Education, told the Senator Joe Nyotu-led committee that a committee led by the clergy has been formed to address the issue.
Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu on Thursday told the Senate Committee on Education that the government has put in measures to ensure traits depicted by people identifying as LGBTQ community do not corrupt the education system. Machogu revealed that the government is working with the clergy to ensure school-going children are protected.
We cannot get mixed up. We cannot destroy the education sector because if we so do, that will be destroying the country.
At the same time, Machogu refuted claims that junior high school classes have not commenced in some region. This even as he admitted that there has been a challenge with teachers teaching science subjects.
Teaching going on, where we are also having a committee to deal with that problem. I say this particularly on science because there are a few schools where we have challenges in science, and we are dealing with that particular program moving ahead.
Meanwhile, the Consumer Federation of Kenya Secretary General Stephen Mutoro wants action taken against former Treasury CS Ukure Turning and the Control of Budget Margaret Nyakango for failing to protect the interest of Kenyans.
We do not have yet the facts for the control of budget, but it will be interesting to find out why she again went and approved the payment, because there is a letter actually being addressed to the cabinet to the principal secretary approving the withdrawal.
If it was true that was happening, she should have produced a letter. In fact, whatever they are circulating, the irrelevant letters, she should have produced a letter written to His Excellency the President or the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission saying, I have made this decision that I would ordinarily have not wanted to make. So that decision making for me, Honorable Member, through the chair, is the most important part, that make the decision as they're supposed to be made.
For Prime Edition, I'm Gladys Mungai.
Now, Kenya joined the rest of the globe in marking World Kidney Day, with stakeholders lauding the progress the country has made in addressing the impact of kidney diseases. And as Pauline Nasimiyu reports, the number of health facilities handling kidney-related diseases has increased tremendously, but the cost of treatment runs high.
On the second Thursday in the month of March each year, the world commemorates World Kidney Day, rededicating itself to a global campaign that aims at raising awareness of the importance of kidneys to overall health and its associated health problems. This year's theme is Kidney Health for All, preparing for the unexpected and supporting the vulnerable. In Nairobi County, the day was marked at Kenyatta National Hospital ground. John Gikonyo, a kidney patient, stresses the importance of frequent medical checkups.
It is important that we are all conscious of our general health and also kidney health. And the best thing someone can do is to have health checkups regularly, once a year recommended.
Health experts highlighted unexpected calamities that can affect the kidneys.
So the unexpected, these are disasters, like natural disasters. In our setup, we can talk of floods. I'm sure soon we'll be having floods. It'll be very hot. But when it's hot like this for a long time, you get famine. So if you live in northeastern and you don't keep well hydrated, you can actually end up with dehydration and get a chronic kidney disease.
Although kidney failure is a silent killer, there are home remedies that can help prevent kidney disease.
We say kidney failure is a complication of other non-communicable diseases. That is what we say, let us be active, let's walk, let's watch our diets, let's eat our traditional diets, let's avoid the processed foods. Don't prescribe yourself, especially painkillers. Go to the hospital for being treated for what that pain is all about.
As we celebrate the World Kidney Day, the experts have emphasized on the preventive measures on how to take care of our kidneys, which include regular checkups, drinking enough water, and also exercising. Pauline Nasimiyu for Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
Now to the corridors of justice. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has moved to court seeking to reclaim a 300 million shillings Kenya Revenue Authority land in Mombasa that was allegedly grabbed. The commission wants the court to nullify the alleged acquired letters of allotment and lease of the land in question. This comes as the non-government organization sues Google LLC International over the unauthorized use of Kenyan's biometric information. This and more from the courts.
According to the filed petition on or about the 16th of December 1974, the government of Kenya through the defunct East Africa Community reserved the parcel of land measuring about 0.96 hectares located at Oceanic area in Kizingo within Mombasa Island for the construction of at least 20 high-standard machinates, design houses for the East African Community's senior staff. On or about the 10th of June 1994, the parcel was allegedly subdivided without an approved part development plan. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission claims the land was illegally allocated by Wilson Gashanja, who served as Commissioner of Lands between 1989 to 1999, to the first up to the 11th defendants, in total disregard of the subsisting alienation of the suit property and the fact that the land was not available for alienation. Consequently, EACC claims the purported allotment and issuance of the lease by Wilson Gashanja and Sami Silas Komen Mwaita, who served as Commissioner of Lands between 1999 and 2003, was fraudulent, illegal, and now wants the court to declare all the title deeds owned by the alleged listed grabbers invalid, null and void, and order be issued directing the Mombasa Land Registrar to cancel the titles and register the 16 executive houses in favor of KRA. Meanwhile, a non-governmental organization, Africa Center for Corrective and Preventive Action, and 31 users of Google and its mobile applications on the Android platform have sued Google over alleged privacy violations by illegally tracking Android users and collecting personal information, including biometric information and photos. In the filed suit, Google is accused of breaching Kenya's data protection laws by illegally invading the privacy of users and collecting the user's biometric information like photos to train their facial recognition technology, voices, videos and messages. Google is yet to file its responses to the suit. Serafina Robi for Prime Edition.
That story by Serafina Robi takes us to a first commercial break. But remember, we are still live on YouTube, Facebook, and as well, you can leave a comment on Twitter at KBC Channel 1. Let's take that commercial break.
Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto. Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2,000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB.
Unajua siku hizi wateja wanatulipa na simu sana. Na hiyo si shida, hiyo ni poa sana by the way. Lakini sasa shida inatokea, wengine wetu wanachukua hizo namba za wateja, alafu wanaanza kugawana huku nje kama njugu. Bana, inatuharibia kazi.
In this digital era, it's normal to collect information for your client. But if you're collecting information for the client, it's important that you secure it and use it for the intended purpose.
Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na ofisi ya Data Protection Commissioner.
Thank you for staying with us. And as I had earlier on indicated, tonight we will be focusing on food insecurity and some of the measures the government has rolled out and looking at the impact. Now we look at the demand for subsidized fertilizer has shot up in the last month as the planting season begins in the country's food basket regions. The Kenya National Trading Corporation says it has so far distributed 80,000 tons of planting fertilizer across 12 counties, and an additional 12 counties have been added to the subsidy program.
Fertilizer is the first input to be subsidized after the retail price of the commodity reached a historic high of 7,000 shillings in some regions mid-last year. The government intervened to reduce the price of fertilizer to 3,500 shillings.
How the fertilizer and the farmers are receiving messages, and they are going to they go to collect their fertilizer that has been subsidized, and they are paying 3,500. The government is subsidizing at a cost of 1,500.
The Kenya National Trading Corporation says the uptake of the subsidized fertilizer has started to increase after apparently 1,431 farmers purchased the chemical out of a targeted 1 million farmers in early February.
We started distribution of fertilizers to these farmers 5 days ago, and because we are starting, the picking is a bit slow, but we have registered that 1,431 farmers have already picked their fertilizers, and some of them have started using them.
KNTC says it has so far distributed 80,000 tons of subsidized planting fertilizer to farmers in 12 counties that are currently experiencing rains.
Started the process of shipping fertilizer to 12 counties, which is the bread basket of Kenya, and normally from regions like Narok, Bomet, they start planting early in January. So we started shipping fertilizer based on the planting patterns of farmers in the different regions when they expect rains. And so far we have shipped over 50,000 metric tons. I think we are almost at 80,000 metric tons now.
An additional 12 counties have been added to the subsidy program and are scheduled to start receiving the chemical mid this month. Farmers in parts of central Kenya will have to wait a little bit longer before they access the subsidized fertilizer, as the government is giving key priority to areas that have already started receiving the long rains.
I know farmers in Nyeri, in Kirinyaga have been a bit concerned. Nyandarua, fertilizer has not reached. We are coming. We have been advised by Ministry of Agriculture on where the season starts. When do we move? When do we shift from planting? We move planting to this side, then we start taking top dressing to the other side.
The corporation says top dressing fertilizer will also be available to farmers from the initial 12 counties.
NPK is for planting. NPK 23 is for planting. CAN, we've also imported CAN. That is for top dressing.
The trading corporation further says it has imported 55,000 tons of the chemical from Saudi Arabia, with 2 local companies contracted to import an additional 245,000 tons for the whole subsidy program.
For the season, we've got over 300,000 metric tons, which coming through Mombasa. What we've imported as KNTC is 55,000 metric tons. What we're getting locally is the balance, which is up to almost 250,000 metric tons.
The subsidy program was allocated 15 billion shillings in the supplementary budget, half of the 30 billion shillings that is needed to lower the cost of fertilizer to pre-COVID levels of 2,500 shillings.
For the season, we've got over 300,000 metric tons, which coming through Mombasa. What we've imported as KNTC is 55,000 metric tons. What we're getting locally is the balance, which is up to almost 250,000 metric tons.
Benson Druba reporting for Prime Edition.
Now, farmers in the 12 targeted counties for the subsidized fertilizer program are picking the farm input. Farmers in some areas say the depot they registered to collect the subsidized fertilizer had run out of the farm input and are calling on the government to replenish the supplies. Nduta Mukami now samples views from those who were at the National Cereals and Produce Board depots to either register or collect the subsidized fertilizer.
The government's agenda to boost food security in the country has been met with a myriad of challenges. Farmers across the 12 counties note that cartels have currently infiltrated the fertilizer supply chain, resulting in uneven distribution of the farm inputs.
Leo wameleta nyingi, lakini hii mbolea ambayo wameleta nyingi hatupati vile inastahili tupate. Ukitrace mahali hizi vitu zinaenda, unapata zinaenda kwa maduka. Haswa hapa kwa maduka hapa kuna maduka ambayo wanauza mbolea ambazo walitoa hapa.
When you walk in our towns, they are sold in our government. So you are wondering what is it that is happening. So there's a lot of corruption in this our place, and even if you are not capable, you will find that somebody can come, even just one person wants a bag, a genuine farmer, he cannot get it.
Tulikuwa tunaambiwa tumepewa siku 30 na siku 30 ni kesho mwisho tarehe 7, na itakueje na kama leo hatutachukua? Tungeomba serikali itukumbuki tuongezee siku zingine za kuchukua mbolea ili tuenee wakulima.
Kupata mbolea saa hizi kwa cereal ni ngumu sana. Tungeomba serikali ya Kenya, rais aweke mkakati ya kuweka kila duka mbolea ili ikue rahisi kwa kila mmoja.
Wakulima tunaumia. Wakulima kule mashinani, washosho wa kukaa hawaelewi penye mbolea inapatikana kwa urahisi. Naomba kwamba serikali ikumbuke waweze kutoka huko majuu wafike local kwa mwananchi wa kawaida mwenye anaweza kufikia karibu na hiyo mbolea ya bei rahisi.
Nikiwa mkulima mdogo ambao ninahitaji mbolea 2-3 hivi na siipati, inaonyesha kwamba kuna pale ambapo mambo hayaendi vizuri.
Nimekuja hapa wiki moja na sijapata mbolea. Ilikuwa nimeapply mbolea 6 na nilikuwa nimepata message. Tukikuja hapa kila siku, manager anatueleza mbolea imeisha.
Tumekuja hapa serial kutafuta mbolea na imekuwa shida. Tunakuchanga mara kadhaa na wanasema hakuna mbolea. Tunahitaji sasa usaidizi kutoka serikali.
Sasa tujui mbolea itakuwa inakuja na hiyo serial ijulikane, hii tutakuwa tukituma inakupatia message ya kuwa hii ndio the best fertilizers imekuja, ama tutakuwa tunapata fertilizers ile ambayo hatujui imetoka wapi.
So wanataka serikali wachunge hiyo nafasi sana, ili cartels wasiingilie na kutengeneza mbolea ile ovyo na kupatia wakulima, na baadaye watu watafikiria wamepanda mimea na mwishowe hakuna kitu itakuwa imewasaidia.
They are now calling on the government to fast track implementation and ensure that the supply chain is not disrupted. Reporting for Prime Edition, my name is Nduta Mokami.
Diversion of water from rivers and lakes to community water ponds may just be among solutions to low food production due to drought. The National Water Harvesting and Storage Authority Acting CEO Sharon Ombonyo says for the long term, Kenya has installed flood control measures and water reservoirs at vantage points to tap and store rain runoff water. Here's our reporter Hibak Said with the details.
Dire situations in over 40 years hitting one of the most promising countries in Africa. However, could the solution lie in where we look the least?
In a land that is 80% arid and semi-arid, is the hope of the masses for survival: water reservoirs. Kenya, the bountiful center jewel of the East African region, has been locked in a toxic exchange of extremes, either floods or a relentless sun that dries all under its gaze.
It's critical that we become as intentional as possible. We need to get together as a country, as Kenyans. Come together, put up water pans. We have evidence of communities that have come together.
We would call on collaboration with the affected institutions and the general citizenry to take the initiative of rainwater harvesting and storage at their own level.
There are 4,100 dams and over 6,000 water pans, enough to put more than 1.5 million hectares under irrigation.
Kenya does have a potential, and if they're all put into place, then we are likely to increase potential of irrigation to even up to 10 million from what we currently have.
Not only that, Kenya plans to achieve food security by the year 2025 through a multi-sectoral approach.
The national government is also very committed to implementing several dams. You've heard of the 100 dams, large dams in the country. We also have 1,000 small dams and ponds that will be conceptualized under the current administration. And we are hoping that this will be able to increase the potential of water that this nation needs. And we also hope that we are going to improve on potential of irrigation in the country.
However, it requires a concerted effort through the whole government approach.
She says it is essential at this critical time, as the rain clouds beckon, to have a joint approach in making full use of the available water infrastructure across the country.
Communities that have come together to put up ponds that they're using for irrigation, that they're also utilizing for even for domestic use and even animals, particularly in the SAL areas.
The citizens to be prepared on water harvesting immediately the rain comes.
Furthermore, with communities taking charge of the water pans, Kenya may have the chance to guarantee yields supported by irrigation.
When we talk about water, we are talking about life, because that is the only commodity that nobody will be able to live without. And therefore, it is the high time that this commodity is treated with the ultimate importance it deserves.
Water as a resource is very scarce in the country at the moment. However, they claim with concerted efforts, there will be a solution that would be long-lasting in the country. Hibak Said for KBC Channel 1.
Thank you, Hibakside, for that report. Now, the weatherman says the long rain season is expected to experience a delayed onset with poor distribution, characterized by long dry spells. At a time when Kenya is experiencing food shortages, this means that farmers may have to work smart and utilize the moisture optimally in order to guarantee yields.
During the 1996 World Food Summit, the Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) developed the definition of food security as the situation when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. But due to climate change, food production has been affected, leading to large populations of people facing challenges accessing food. During the release of the long range seasonal forecast of March to May, the Director of Meteorological Services, Dr. David Gikungu, announced that the breadbasket counties, including the highlands west of the Rift Valley, Lake Victoria Basin, Central and South Rift Valley, as well as highlands east of the Rift Valley, including Nairobi County, will for the first time experience below normal rainfall.
We are staring into the possibility of a sixth failed season. This is not something we have seen. It is likely that most areas will have a generally poor distribution of rainfall in both time and space.
According to the head of the Climate Change Unit in the Ministry of Agriculture, Njenga Ruben, the depressed rainfall could worsen food security and nutrition in the ASAL areas.
Low access, like you'd want maybe to buy a fruit or even the normal sukuma wiki, and it's not accessible. And then we have high food prices, which are still realized even up to now, and then in the local markets that are there. And then we have increased livestock mortality rates in the pastoral areas as a result of reduced grazing pastures and water shortages, which are very key for these particular livelihoods.
Agro-meteorologist Japheth Migiro is advising that in order to ensure productivity, farmers need to grow fast-maturing crop varieties.
Trans Nzoia region, which is actually, again, the breadbasket for the country, there is that slight shift, especially on the dates of the onset dates. Initially, it could be like the last week of March, but now most people, you find that there is that tendency. The onset is around could be the first week of April.
The change in the agroecological regions due to changing weather patterns calls for changing the planting season.
Our research institutions like KARI need to come up with the drought resistant, at least crops that are able to withstand drought for to a certain level.
The projected low rainfall in the arid and semi-arid lands, combined with above-average temperatures, may have a negative impact on pasture regeneration, which could undermine recovery from the effects of the current drought.
So it means the food is going to be scarce. The other implication is, like, for example, the pastoral areas. We are going to have, we expect many livestock perhaps to die because of lack of feed.
This means that the existing pasture scarcity as well as poor animal body conditions might persist as a result of reduced pasture and water. However, the weatherman says occasional localized storms are likely to be experienced in parts of the country and is advising counties to ensure optimal utilization of rainfall and to put in place measures that enable households to harvest rainwater. Judith Akolo, Prime Edition.
The country's main water bodies are fast shrinking, spelling doom for the renewed focus on agriculture, one of the country's key sectors of production and a source of livelihood for millions of Kenyans. Experts are warning that if the slow death of water bodies is not reversed, the situation will get worse. They are attributing the drying up of wetlands to environmental degradation and climate change. Our reporter Opicho Chemutai with the details.
Years ago, the thought of crossing moving rivers, streams, or even tributaries will not cross your mind due to the violent speed and rage with which they flow. But now the circumstances have changed. Water sources are drying up at an alarming rate. Take the case of Lake Kapnarok in Baringo County, a key ecosystem that once supported one of the biggest populations of crocodiles in the region.
Until now, hatujui kama tutaweza pata mamba tena wengi kama vile walikuwa.
A huge number of people depended on it for their livelihood also, yet it's on the verge of completely drying up.
Hii area hii yote ilikuwa inategemea hii ziwa Kapnarok. Sasa vile imekauka kila kitu imeenda mrama.
When you look at it, it creates the illusion of a fairy ball of earth right inside what used to be the flow of an oxbow lake. The rivers that used to feed the lake are also dry. The situation is no different with water bodies in the rest of the country. But how did the once flourishing inland aquatic ecosystem dry out, taking with it life and livelihoods?
The same rivers we have been overutilizing through farming, so many deviations as a matter of fact. We've cut down our trees, and which something we don't really want to really comprehend.
Wangari says climate change has exacerbated the situation, in turn negatively impacting agriculture, which is the biggest GDP contributor.
Depreciation or lack of water naturally will affect the economy to a very, very, very large degree. Women are spending a lot of time looking for water instead of doing other things that are important to drive the economy.
As evident from most small-scale farmers who still rely on the water bodies for farming, and so do the herders.
Ukienda pale mahali maji yetu huwa inatoka Divashania, hakuna maji kwa ukweli. Kwa hivyo imebidi watupee maji kwa siku chache kwa wiki.
Mifugo wale ambao tumefuga kitu kama ng'ombe na tunategemea ile maji hatupati, inabidi tuende tununulie ng'ombe maji, of which tunaingia kwa mfuko, nayo ni costly.
The government has shifted its focus to agriculture, but the rivers and lakes expected to supply water for irrigation-fed farming are drying up fast. Environmentalists are warning of a major crisis if the situation does not change for the better.
Along these main tributaries, these main rivers, they should be probably fenced, from their source to their drainage.
Opicho Chemtai for Prime Edition.
Farming has for years been considered a preserve of the older generation who used jembes to till the land and marked their planting seasons based on the rains. Today, a youthful generation is investing in farming, albeit in a more sophisticated manner, by applying smart technology to avert losses and ensure profits and sustainability. Regina Manyara engages local farmers who are practicing smart agriculture.
Peter Koigi watched his parents mark the rains calendar, retrieve their stored indigenous seeds and head out to prepare the land for planting. And due to unpredictable weather patterns, pest infestation, sometimes the crops would fail. When he inherited his father's land, he knew he needed to do things differently.
I have the onions, and I also have tomatoes. I have lettuce and maize. We are using the gravity to water our plants.
He ventured into smart agriculture and has never turned back.
Smart agriculture is very effective, and one of the ways is that if you know how to do farming, you would be able to sustain or maybe grow your plants successfully without relying on the rains. As much as you're going to add some more on irrigation, you're also going to get some more. And actually, the prices are better now, and especially for tomatoes, and also for onions. And therefore, we can say that this kind of farming is better.
For Ruth Warima, her tomato farm is blooming despite the drought.
Yes, convention farming, that is where, if you mention convention, I can relate to my grandfather, the way they used to do farming, the old school way, which was a bit tiring. But in smart farming, we are using technology that have come in, which have really helped us as farmers.
Having installed an irrigation system, the crops in the fields access the much-needed commodity. Would she revert to conventional farming?
Smart farming, you get high yield, and also it cuts on your labor cost, which has really helped us a lot as farmers.
Smart agriculture has also ensured farmers know exactly what seeds to plant, when, and the right soil acidity of alkalinity.
First, we collect the samples, and when we collect samples, we mix with the water so that the nutrients can evenly dissolve in that kind of pasty and slurry, and then we put in our machine. It takes about max of 15 minutes to the entire process.
Extension officers are advocating for bringing more cultivatable land under irrigation, embracing smart agriculture to increase farm productivity, and enhancing value addition in agriculture. And all this depends on soil quality.
So tunasema teknolojia ina play part kubwa sana yenye ambayo ina maximize zile resources kidogo tuko nazo.
Government institutions are advocating for adoption of smart agriculture that includes the use of improved seed varieties with the capacity to produce high yields to increase production. While Ruth and Peter have maximized the potential in their large farms, you can also adopt and apply smart agriculture to ensure that you have food at your table. And if you have space or not, you can still apply this particular technique to ensure that you not only feed your household, but also can commercialize farming. I'm Regina Manyara, reporting for Prime Edition.
Operationalizing Kerugoya Level 5 Hospital.
A functioning school feeding program.
But how have the leaders performed so far?
The percentage of A's in 2021 were more than those ones in 2022.
We will not politicize security, because if we do so, we endanger the country.
Every week, we bring you an honest assessment of the national and county governments.
One of the best ways of accelerating national development is through collaboration with county governments.
The Scorecard, coming soon on KBC Channel 1.
And thank you for staying with us. Now, drought has been ravaging crops, fields, and led to the death of thousands of livestock. Farmers are being advised to ensure their crops and livestock against losses due to uncertainties such as drought and flooding. Principal Secretary for Livestock Harry Kimtai says with the persistent drought, crop insurance is the best cover for farmers to cushion themselves against crop and livestock due to drought and poor rains.
Devastated pastoralists. Hundreds of livestock dead. Their only source of livelihood rotting on the ground as vultures devour the carcasses of their cows, goats and sheep.
Sisi zamani tunauza ng'ombe tunatoa karo ya shule. Leo
shida kubwa kwa maana hatuna hiyo mali.
Migrating from one region to another in search of pasture and water is not an option. The remaining stock emaciated and staring at death.
Ile imebaki ni ile amelegea ambaye anaweza kufa wakati yoyote.
Kidogo tu imebaki sasa kama 2,000 ama 3,000.
The situation is dire in Isiolo and other arid and semi-arid regions. Government records show that about 2 million heads of livestock have died so far. The situation necessitated an export freeze of live animals for not meeting the export standards.
We had started exporting livestock to Oman, and we had about 3 shipments by December, end of December. This could not proceed because of the loss.
Crops have also dried up due to poor rains, worsening the food insecurity situation in the country. Index-based agriculture insurance has been fronted as the solution.
The permanent solution kuhandle hizo losses ya mifugo ni hiyo livestock insurance.
Although the crop and livestock insurance program targeting farmers and pastoralists has been in place for 9 years, the uptake is still low despite sensitization efforts ongoing in various regions.
The premium is just around 1 billion Kenyan shillings. That is the statistics for 2022.
Last year, about 700 million shillings worth of claims were paid out to farmers.
The government contributes in terms of premium. They pay the 50% premium. That is to encourage the farmers now to just get insurance for their livestock. They pay the 50% and then the farmers are encouraged to pay the other 50%.
The ministry undertook the livestock offtake program that saw 395 million shillings disbursed for the purchase of animals for slaughter and processing of corned beef and ground slaughtering.
We're buying the animals at 15,000. Looked at areas where there were people who were facing starvation, and they could slaughter the animals and take and give the communities meat so that they're able to feed themselves.
A $360 million program supported by the World Bank through the insurance firm of the Comesa Zipri has been rolled out. Farmers will pay 20% as premium, while 80% will be covered by their respective governments under the funds that come in form of grant and loan.
The drought is persistent. So the other interventions that have been put in place through our Department of ASAL.
The penetration of risk management solutions in agriculture in Kenya remains low, calling for disruptive innovations to boost the uptake of agriculture insurance solutions in the country. Maize millers are staring at losses running into billions of shillings after the government failed to pay them for the subsidized maize mill. The millers are owed more than 4 billion shillings by the Ministry of Agriculture for the deliveries they made last year. United Grain Millers Association say the situation has been worsened by the acute shortage of maize in the market, which is set to make maize flour costlier. Andrew Okero reports.
The government rolled out the 80 billion shillings maize flour subsidized program in June last year to cushion Kenyans against the rising cost of the commodity. Under an agreement reached between millers and the Ministry of Agriculture, millers who participated in the 1-month plan were to be compensated on a rolling basis depending. The millers were supposed to invoice the Ministry of Agriculture before being submitted to the National Treasury. However, more than 6 months down the line, most millers are yet to receive their payment.
So we are looking at a very hard time when we don't have money
to purchase, because most of this money is being owned by the same government that is expecting us to buy and mill and bring the cost of flour down.
The millers are saying that the country is staring at a worsening food situation due to a widespread shortage of maize in the country. The Ministry of Agriculture had capped the price of 2 kilo maize flour at 100 Kenyan shillings under the 8 billion Kenyan shillings subsidy program. However, the program failed after the Treasury failed to release funds on time. Early this week, Parliament rejected the payment of 4 billion Kenyan shillings for maize flour subsidy on account of non-disclosure of the quantity of maize supplied and the areas in which the subsidized flour was supplied.
I say that millers did their work with the full supervision of government officials, provincial administrators. They used to visit our factories, and where we used to deliver this hunger, they used to know.
We must have a conversation about what is an appropriate response plan from the funding that we have among development partners, and what is an appropriate recovery plan from the threats that we have had in the past couple of years. But most importantly, what is the resilience building plan, so that every 2 to 3 years we are not coming back to say we have millions of hungry people, we need food.
Speaking at this year's annual Millers Conference, Chairman of the United Grain Millers Association, Njenga, has urged the government to work with the millers to help settle the pending bills.
As Kenyans wait for a break from the high prices of commodities, there is need for the government to collaborate with other stakeholders on food production to quench the thirst of many Kenyans whose livelihoods have been curtailed by extreme drought and unpredictable rainfall, leading to low productivity. Early this week, the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, signed a deal to allow Kenyan farmers to plant maize in Zambia, with CS Linturi expressing confidence that the 6-month duty-free importation window will see the country meet its local demand for maize. Andrew Kero for Prime Edition in Nairobi.
Now, moving away from food insecurity matters, the government plans to audit all mining licenses in Kenya to ensure compliance with the Mining Act 2016. The Ministry of Mining and Blue Economy says that it will accelerate the completion of the airborne geophysical survey to map out the country's extractive resources. The ministry wants Parliament to double its budgetary allocation to 3.2 billion shillings in the fiscal year 2023-2024.
Kenya plans to increase the share of mining to GDP to 10% from the current 1.2% spelled out in Vision 2030. The government has been undertaking various legal and policy reforms to align the industry with the best global practices. Kenya is believed to have huge deposits of coal, gold, titanium, and rare earth minerals, among others. However, the country has managed to attract one big-ticket player in the last 15 years, the Australian-based Base Titanium. The Ministry of Mining and Blue Economy says budgetary constraints are hindering the development of the mining industry in the country. The ministry wants the National Assembly to raise its budgetary allocation to 3.2 billion shillings from the current 1.9 billion.
Please, you may highlight a few.
Mining Committee Chairperson David Gikaria says the money will be used in implementing various projects, including the stalled National Mining Corporation.
We are just saying, give us the money. The government will now, and the ministry and the president has spoken to it, that he wants to transform this sector. And first, let us put our house in order by giving us the additional money for us to have the laboratory.
Gikaria says the ministry loses billions of shillings through exploitation by unregulated investors. In 2019, the government suspended the issuance of new mining permits until the new airborne surveys concluded. The ministry will also promote and formalize artisanal and small-scale mining in a bid to create more jobs in rural areas.
We might look as the consumers of the little money that they will give, but they should rest assured that we will be the one who will be filling the baskets of the exchequer in the next 1 year.
Frederick Muki for Prime Edition.
Cheza Loto Moto, shinda milioni 2 kila siku. Kwenye M-Pesa, chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number, andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2,000.
Aulali.
Lipa, kisha subiri draw. Welala, nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na B and rewarded.
Operationalizing Kerugoya Level 5 Hospital.
A functioning school feeding program.
But how have the leaders performed so far?
The percentage of A's in 2021 were more than those ones in 2022.
We will not politicize security, because if we do so, we endanger the country.
Every week, we bring you an honest assessment of the national and county governments.
One of the best ways of accelerating national development is through collaboration with county governments.
The Scorecard, coming soon on KBC Channel 1.
Welcome back. I can see Daniel Wahome on the other end of the studio ready to bring you today's sports. But before then, let's take a look at the Magical Since, our weekly segment, and we focused on Kericho County, where agrotourism has steadily been gaining popularity, with consumers keen to explore processes taken in making their favorite products. Kenya is a renowned grower of and exporter of tea. On this week edition of Magical Since, Irene Muchumo Dim takes you on a journey of the beautiful tea plantation in Kericho.
Tea plantations possess an air of romance, and Kericho is one destination to visit for tea plantation scenery. The rolling green estates, dotted with eucalyptus type of trees, besides the lush zigzag slopes, make Kericho simply magical, especially when you drive along the Kericho-Kisii-Kisumu road. The vibrant and nature-rich places provide visitors with soul-stirring views across vast landscapes. They also offer guests the chance to sample a sumptuous array of harvested produce. Tea is a major cash crop in these parts of Kenya. Kenyan tea has been the leading major foreign earner for the country, with most tea produced in Kenya being black tea, green tea, and yellow tea. Kenya tea has long been considered a health-enhancing beverage. The teas are famous for their brightness, brisk flavor, and textures of fragrant leaves. The tea processing exercise is also a magical experience for would-be visitors. And if you are interested to put up in this part of Kenya for a night or two, then why not? Most facilities are suited to meet the varied needs to would-be visitors.
It is ideal for both holiday, business, and also maybe for the ones who are coming for work, mainly because our apartments and bungalows, apart from the location being ideal, means it is very close to town. They are very spacious, and we are very particular on the furniture and the interior, so we work so much on that.
Irene Mchuma Odim, Magical Sense.
Irene Muchuma for that report on the Magical Sense. Now, if you love being sporty, well, Daniel Wahome is with me right here to take you on that journey. How are you,
Very
Daniel?
well, Irimo, how are you doing?
I'm great.
Well, I think...
What do you have to for us?
Well, let me just start with some good news coming in from Morocco, from Parasport.
And this is news just in from Morocco, the ongoing World Para-Athletics in Marrakesh. And Kenya just won 3 medals, a silver and 2 bronze. And the first medal was a bronze won by Brian Esogon in the 100 meters T12. This is for visually impaired athletes. The silver medal was clinched by Neema Stacy in the 100 meters T47. This is for amputees. And another bronze was won by Vincent Mutai in the 100 meters T46. This is for people who are born with not fully formed arms or legs. That is why it's called T46. The event continues tomorrow, and we will keep updating you on this. Let us now move on to another story where Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei has tabled a motion in the Senate seeking to compel the Ministry of Sports to instigate an investigation at the Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya due to increased doping cases in the country. Cherargei blamed EDAC for taking too long to address the doping menace in the country, which he says may affect Kenya's preparation for next year's Olympic Games in Paris, France. In addition, the senator wants the Ministry of Sports to find ways to increase Kenya's testing capacities and also come up with more doping awareness programs and scale up intelligence gathering on athletes.
Come up with modalities that can help achieve increased testing, intelligence gathering on athletes and doping awareness programs, number one. But B, in collaboration with Athletics Kenya, National Olympic Committee of Kenya, NOC, to vet all training camp coaches and trainers and other athletes, initiate investigation at Anti-Doping Agency Kenya ADACT to identify and sanction all responsible officers liable for the menace of doping. D, in collaboration with Directorate of Criminal Investigations and Ethics and Anti-Corruption, EACC and DCI, finalize pending investigations and recommend prosecution of individuals involved in giving this banned substance to athletes. And finally, Mr. Speaker, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health to identify and revoke licenses for medics, pharmacists, and hospitals responsible for prescription of the biggest challenge, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of doping. And that is why it is so dangerous that WADA and the ADAC need to up the game, Mr. Speaker, because we are preparing for 2024 athletics champions. And you know, we don't want our integrity to be dented among in the world global. Mr. Speaker, there are people who are threatening the careers of our promising athletes, and these are unlicensed coaches, the agents, Mr. Speaker. And they come and tell young people, in fact, I've talked to many athletes who have been in this scandal. They sometimes tell them, take these painkillers. When the officials come and take blood sample, they are told them you are using doping medicine.
Now, the 2023 Magical Kenya Open teed off today at the Par 71 Muthaiga Golf Club course. 156 players from across the world, including 15 Kenyans, are in the hunt for a share of the 259 million shilling prize fund. Home player Mutahi Kifugo is the best placed Kenyan on day one of the 2023 Magical Kenya Open after an opening round of 3 under par 68 at the Par 71 Muthaiga Golf Club course. Mutahi had
kind of a nice way to kind of build some momentum. I feel like I've been close. It's just poor swing here, misjudgment here, and that's all it takes out here. You know, it's very fine margins. Was able to take 2 weeks off and put some work in on my game, and I feel like it's starting to pay off, so I'm definitely excited about that.
Played very solid today, kept the momentum going throughout the round, made some good putts, hit a lot of greens. Greens are small, so if you're hitting greens, you're going to have a lot of chances. Managed to make a few putts. Just keep doing the same thing. Excited for tomorrow.
And 59 million shilling prize fund. We'll keep up with that story over the weekend. Now, an own goal by Kelvin Wesonga in the first half sentenced Wazito to their third straight loss, while stretching AFC Leopards' unbeaten run to 8 matches. Wesonga netted in his own net at the Kasarani Stadium to hand Leopards 3 crucial points that moved them up to 5th on the FKF Premier League table on 32 points, 6 points behind leaders Gor Mahia. The lone goal was a blow for Wazito, who continued to stay in the relegation zone, 6 points away from safety. The match that ended 1-0 in favor of AFC Leopards was the only game on the cards today. Leopards' next assignment will be against Mathare United, and Wazito will be playing against Vihiga United. Bayern Munich qualified for the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League after beating Paris Saint-Germain by 3-0 on goal aggregate. Meanwhile, English Premier League side Tottenham Hotspur were knocked out of the competition after a barren draw with AC Milan.
In another match, AC Milan also qualified after their barren draw with Tottenham Hotspurs gave them a 1-0 aggregate win. Meanwhile, 8 Europa League last 16 matches are on card tonight. Manchester United will welcome Real Betis. Arsenal will play Sporting Lisbon. Sevilla will welcome Fenerbahce. Roma will entertain Real Sociedad. Shakhtar Donetsk will face Feyenoord. Juventus will play Freiburg. Union Berlin will welcome Union Saint-Gilloise, while Bayer Leverkusen will host Ferencvaros.
Well, thank you, Daniel Wahome, for that sporty bulletin right there. Now, we've been covering food insecurity for the better part of this evening. I'd like to know if you think that as a country we'll ever become food secure.
If we have to become food secure, then we've got to learn lessons from the story of Joseph in the Bible, where 7 years of drought were predicted, and so then 7 years of great harvest and 7 years of drought. So if we don't stock up appropriately for those 7 years, we'll not be food secure. It's as simple as that. If you don't, if you fail to plan, you're basically planning to fail. So let's just learn from the story of Joseph, the former Prime Minister of Egypt.
You have heard it from Daniel Wahome right there. Well, that is where we put a cap on tonight's news. Thank you for joining us and for staying with us from 9 p.m. till now. It's almost 10, or rather it's past 10. My name is Njenga.
My name is Daniel Wahome. Our sign language interpreter has been Byron Abuli, and on behalf of the team that put this bulletin together, Asante Sana, and you, the viewer, thank you for being with us. Have a good night.
Good night.